Hey guys, welcome and ting and ting and ting. We're back with another one for you, and this one is Festivals and Rituals of the Pagan Celts. You understand what I'm saying? I want to see what this is all about, and thank you all for the suggestions and stuff that have been coming in for me to watch. I'm getting to them. And thank you all for supporting me this year. You know, this is the last day of the year. I'm recording this on the 31st. Yeah, I'm watching this on the 31st. So, hope the new year brings the big things for you all. Big things. Let's go ahead on YouTube and simmer and see what these festivals and rituals are all about.
The fall of the Celtic worship began earlier in Britain than in her sister island. Neither was it Christianity that struck the first blow, but the rough humanity and stern justice of the Romans. That race was more tolerant than any the world has ever known towards the religions of others, and gladly welcomed the Celtic gods into its own diverse pantheon. A friendly Gaulish or British divinity might at any time be granted the so to speak divine Roman citizenship, and be assimilated to Jupiter, to Mars, to Apollo, or to any other properly accredited deity whom the Romans deemed him to resemble. It was not against the god, but against his worship at the hands of his priests, that Roman law struck. The colossal human sacrifices of the Druids horrified even a people who were far from squeamish about a little bloodshed. They themselves had abolished such practices by a decree of the Senate before Caesar first invaded Britain, and could not therefore permit within their empire a cult which slaughtered men in order to draw omens from their death agonies. Druidism was first required to be renounced by those who claimed Roman citizenship, then it was vigorously put down among the less civilized tribes. Tacitus tells us how the island of Anglesey, the great stronghold of Druidism, was attacked, its sacred groves cut down, its altars laid level, and its priests put to the sword. The practice of Druidism, abolished.
See, whenever people take over a place, the first thing they go for is a religion, isn't it? Because they understand having faith in something you can't see could be a great motivator to rebel and fight back against what's going on. You know what I mean? Somebody come and say, this person's, this great Lord of God says that I'm here to save you. Everybody's going to jump on it, you know what I mean? So the thing about it is, if you suppress the people's religion, that goes a long way to keeping them under your wing. And then you implement your own religion on them too. Make their religion against the law. That's the ultimate in control right there, you know what I mean?
In Britain, wherever the long Roman arm could reach to strike, took refuge beyond the northern wall, among the savage Caledonian tribes who had not yet submitted to the invader's yoke. Naturally, too, it remained untouched in Ireland. But before the Romans left Britain, it had been extirpated everywhere, except among the Picts and Scots. Christianity completed the ruin of paganism in Britain, so far, at least, as its public manifestations were concerned. And with the idols fell the priests. The very word Druid became obsolete, and is scarcely mentioned in the earliest British literature, though Druids are prominent characters in the Irish writings of the same period. The secular arm had no power in Scotland and in Ireland, consequently the battle between paganism and Christianity was fought upon more equal terms, and lasted longer. In the first country, St. Columba, and in the second, St. Patrick are the personages who, at any rate according to tradition, beat down the Druids and their gods. Avavnorn, abbot of Iona, who wrote his Vita Columbae in the last decade of the 7th century, describes how, a century earlier, that saint had carried the gospel to the Picts. Their king, Bruder, received him contemptuously, and the royal Druids left no heathen spell unuttered to thwart and annoy him. But, as the power of Moses was greater than the power of the magicians of Egypt, so St. Columba's prayers caused miracles more wonderful and more convincing than any wrought by his adversaries. It is far easier, however, to overthrow the more public manifestations of a creed than to destroy its inner vital force. The sacred places of the ancient Celtic religion might be invaded, the idols and altars of the gods thrown down, the priests slain, scattered, or banished, and the cult officially declared to be extinct, but, driven from the important centres, it would yet survive outside and around them. The Gaelic and Welsh peasants clung to their old gods, in spite of all the efforts of the clerics to explain them as ancient kings, to transform them into wonder-working saints, or to ban them as demons of hell. The high altars of the Lord of the Mound and his terrible kin were levelled, and their golden images and great temples left to moulder in abandonment, but the rude rustic shrine to the rude rustic god still received its offerings. It is the ritual observances of the old Celtic faith which have better weathered, and will longer survive, the disintegrating influences of time. Things may still be done for luck which were once done for religion. Customary observances die very slowly, held up by an only half-acknowledged fear that, unless...
That just brought a thought in, you know what I mean? What is superstition and what is religious based? Just like we were saying, there's some things we say now could have been something that was said in the church back then. Like the folklore, the folk tales, those things was probably said in churches back then, but for practical reasons. Don't go into the forest, you might get lost. There's a beast in there, there's a monster in there. Children, don't play in the forest. There's an old lady in the house that's going to do something to you or eat you or something like that, And if religion was so strong back there, it was an integral part in the power play of politics. A lot of their sayings and their beliefs and naysay what became superstition later filtered out into the people. It's kind of interesting.
They are fulfilled, something may happen. We shall get more satisfactory evidence of the nature of the Celtic paganism by examining such customs than in any other way. We find several forms of the survival of the ancient religion into quite recent times. The first is the celebration of the old solar or agricultural festivals of the spring and autumn equinoxes and of the summer and winter solstices. The second is the practice of a symbolic human sacrifice by those who have forgotten its meaning, and only know that they are keeping up an old custom, joined with late instances of the actual sacrifices of animals to avert cattle plagues or to change bad luck. The third consists of many still living relics of the once universal worship of sacred waters, trees, stones, and animals. Whatever may have been the exact meaning of the Celtic state worship, there seems to be no doubt that it centered around the 4 great days in the year which chronicle the rise, progress, and decline of the sun, and, therefore, of the fruits of the earth. These were, Beltane, which fell at the beginning of May, Midsummer Day, marking the triumph of sunshine and vegetation, the Feast of Lugh, when, in August, the turning point of the sun's course had been reached, and the sad Samhain, when he bade farewell to power, and fell again for half a year under the sway of the evil forces of winter and darkness. Of these great solar periods, the first and the last were, naturally, the most important. The whole Celtic mythology seems to revolve upon them, as upon pivots. It was on the day of Beltane that Partilone and his people, the discoverers of Ireland, arrived there from the other world, and it was on the same day, 300 years later, that they returned whence they came. It was on Beltane Day that the Gaelic gods, the Tuatha Dé Danann, and the Gaelic men, first set foot on Irish soil. It was on the day of Samhain that the Fomors oppressed the people of Nevydd with their terrible tax, and it was again at Samhain that a later race of gods of light and life finally conquered those demons at the Battle of Moytura. Only one important mythological incident, and that was one added at a later time, happened upon any other than one of those 2 days. It was upon Midsummer Day, one of the lesser solar points, that the people of the goddess Danu took Ireland from its inhabitants, the Fir Bolgs. The nature of the rites performed upon these days can be surmised from their pale survivals. They are still celebrated by the descendants of the Celts, though it is probable that few of them know, or would even care to know, why May Day, St. John's Day, Lammas, and Halloween are times of ceremony.
Yep.
The first, called Beltane in Ireland, celebrates the waking of the earth from her winter sleep, and the renewal of warmth, life, and vegetation.
You know, when he said that, how it takes on a different meaning as time goes by, something that you believe, they believe back in the past. So how many, or how easy would it be for a politician to emphasize a certain part of something and set that in motion for generations to come? We have to depend on men or humans who's got a certain purpose for what they're doing to tell us what history is. You know what I mean? I'm saying. Now, I do believe that sometimes the pure history has been told from the jump. But I also believe that later on people start changing things or embellishing or lessening things to affect the way that history influences the people that they want to be influenced on whatever it is that they're trying to say, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever ideology they're trying to push, you know? Is that person's fault? Is that group's fault? Let's go back in history and see this and see that. You know what I'm saying? And these things sell, you know what I mean? They sell. Anyway, let's keep going here.
Shakespeare tells us that in his time the festival was so eagerly anticipated that no one could sleep upon its eve. At midnight the people rose, and, going to the nearest woods, tore down branches of trees, with which the sun, when he rose, would find doors and windows decked for him. They spent the day in dancing round the maypole, with rude, rustic mirth, man joining with nature to celebrate the coming of summer. The opposite to it was the day called Samhain, for the night of the winter calends. This festival was a sad one. Summer was over, and winter, with its short, sunless days and long, dreary nights, was at hand. It was the beginning, too, of the ancient Celtic year, and omens for the future might be extorted from dark powers by uncanny rites. It was the holiday of the dead and of all the more evil supernatural beings. On November Eve, says a North Cardiganshire proverb, there is a bogey on every stile. The Scotch have even invented a special bogey, the Sohanich or goblin, which comes out at Samhain. The characteristic features of these festivals give certain proof of the original nature of the great pagan ceremonials of which they are the survivals and travesties. In all of them, bonfires are lighted on the highest hills, and the hearth fires solemnly rekindled. They form the excuse for much sport and jollity. But there is yet something sinister in the air. The fairies are active and abroad, and one must be careful to omit no prescribed rite, if one would avoid kindling their anger or falling into their power. To some of these still half-believed in nature gods, offerings were made down to a comparatively late period. When Pennant wrote, in the 18th century, it was the custom on Beltane Day in many Highland villages to offer libations and cakes not only to the spirits who were believed to be beneficial to the flocks and herds, but also to creatures like the fox, the eagle, and the hoodie crow which so often molested them. At Halloween, the Celtic Samhain, the natives of the Hebrides used to pour libations of ale to a marine god called Shawnee, imploring him to send seaweed to the shore. The bonfires which fill so...
You ever notice that in a lot of ancient religion there's a marriage between the natural earth and the religion? Like, the god of the sea, the god of the, of the sky, trees. They seem to marry the natural world with a higher power spiritual type of understanding of the life that they live in. And a lot of them, it doesn't seem like they think of the conquering of said land. It's only modern times you hear people say, God put this land here for us to, to take a, use, so then let's exploit. And I'm not even talking about the people. I'm talking about the fact that it's, the marriage between nature and spirituality. That seemed to be gone, man. We have no respect for this earth that we live on, none whatsoever. We think we hold complete domain over everything, and it's our right to destroy it as we know it. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand that. Such a beautiful world that actually helps sustain us. You know what I mean? Even the animals that we eat have to eat something that comes from the earth. We should be living in some kind of synchronicity. What's the word I'm looking for? In unison with the earth. You know what I'm saying? That's what we need to start doing. Anyway, let's get back to this here.
The larger part in the modern festivals have been casually mentioned. Originally they were no mere feu de joie, but had a terrible meaning, which the customs connected with them preserve. At the Highland Beltane, a cake was divided by lot, and whoever drew the burnt piece was obliged to leap 3 times over the flames. At the midsummer bonfires in Ireland all passed through the fire, the men when the flames were highest, the women when they were lower, and the cattle when there was nothing left but smoke. In Wales, upon the last day of October, the old Samhain, there was a slightly different, and still more suggestive rite. The hilltop bonfires were watched until they were announced to be extinct. Then all would race headlong down the hill, shouting a formula to the effect that the devil would get the hindmost. The devil of a new belief is the god of the one it has supplanted. In all 3 instances, the custom was no mere meaningless horse play, but a symbolical human sacrifice. There are many modern instances of the sacrifices of cattle not only in Ireland and Scotland, but also in Wales, Yorkshire, Northamptonshire, Cornwall, and the Isle of Man. In 1859 an Isle of Man farmer offered a heifer as a burnt offering near Tinwald Hill, to avert the anger of the ghostly occupant of a barrow which had been desecrated by opening. Sometimes, even, these burnt oblations were offered to an alleged Christian saint. The registers of the Presbytery of Dingwall for the years 1656 and 1678 contain records of the sacrifices of cattle upon the site of an ancient temple in honor of a being whom some called Saint Maury, who was thought to delight in the blood of bulls. The third form of Celtic pagan survival is found in numerous instances of the adoration of water, trees, stones, and animals. The Celts worshipped their rivers. The Tweed was credited with human descendants. That the rivers of Great Britain received human sacrifices is clear from the folklore concerning many of them. Deprived of their expected offerings, they are believed to snatch by stealth the human lives for which they crave. Evidence, however, of the worship of rivers is scanty compared with that of the adoration of wells. In some cases these wells were resorted to for the cure of diseases, in others, to obtain change of weather, or good luck. Offerings were made to them, to propitiate their guardian gods or nymphs. But of late years the well spirits have had to be content with much smaller tributes, such trifles as pins, rags, colored pebbles, and small coins. With sacred wells were often connected sacred trees, to whose branches rags and small pieces of garments were suspended by their humble votaries. In Devonshire, lived, and perhaps still live, 4 frogs who were, and perhaps still are, believed to be the devil and his imps. In Ireland such guardian spirits are usually trout, eels, or salmon thought to be endowed with eternal life. It is needless to multiply instances of a still surviving cult of water, trees, stones, and animals. Enough to say that it would be easy. What concerns us is that we are face to face in Britain with living forms of the oldest, lowest, primitive religion in Europe and perhaps even the globe, one which would seem to have been once universal, and which, crouching close to the earth, lets other creeds blow over it without effacing it, and outlives one and all of them. Whether the great edifice of the Celtic mythology will ever be wholly restored one can at present only speculate. Its colossal fragments are perhaps too deeply buried and too widely scattered. But, even as it stands ruined, it is a mighty quarry from which poets yet unborn will hew spiritual marble for houses not made with hands.
You know, here's the question. Why is it primitive, though? Just because it's not what you believe doesn't make it primitive. For their times, it wasn't primitive. It's what the people believed. But you know, when one ideology takes over another, it tries to stamp out the old ideology, and thus we get all the what is true. You know what I'm saying? You got to ask yourself that. You know, because in order to make that religion seem like a bad religion, there'd be stories and parables and fables and all kind of stuff coming out of that religion by those who want us to think twice about joining that religion. It's like a battle for your mind. Some say a battle for your soul, but I think it's a battle for your mind. Anyway, man, I'll leave a link in the description to this video. You could go check it out and thing. If you like this video, drop a like on it. Please comment down below. Keep the suggestions coming. Hope you guys are having a great day. You all take care of each other. Cool runnings.